Hello, hi everybody, how's it going? Today I'm going to be talking about how to add exaggeration to a naturalistic or realistic drawing. I got a question from one of my readers, which specifically asked facial morphing and exaggeration, basically squash and stretch, but with more solid style of distortion. Examples are Space Dandy, Golden Age cartoons, semi-realistic stuff. And that's what I'm going to be concerning myself with today. Hi, my name is Luis Escobar. I'm a storyboard artist on the Simpsons television show. I've been working on the show for over 20 years now. So I'm going to address squash and stretch first. Now, what is squash and stretch? Squash and stretch is actually an animation term, something that we in animation use. The definition is I got this from Wikipedia because I didn't feel like coming up with my own. The principle is based on observation that only stiff objects remain inert during motion, while objects that are not stiff, although retaining overall volume, tend to change shape in an extent that depends on inertia, elasticity of the different parts of the moving object. So, in other words, when something isn't like a chair or a rock, when it's made out of flesh and bone or any other kind of uh, like a flour sack, like a rubber ball, that has some kind of give. An object tends to squash to a certain extent um, when there's some kind of compression going on. For example, a ball hitting the ground or a person landing on the ground, etc. So I'm actually going to show you some examples. So here's an example of squash and stretch. Now here we've got a regular ball in its normal uh, way of being, a ball. As it hits the ground, it squashes because the impact of the ball. Now in animation, you anticipate the squash by actually stretching it as it gets closer. It kind of simulates the speed of the ball as it gets closer to the ground. Then it hits the ground and it bounces right off, still stretching because it's still getting it's kind of like the force or the speed from which is coming from it is still hitting. It's still in it, and then it goes back to normal. Boom, it squashes again. Boom, it squashes again. But notice that this is the higher of the squashes next to this one, uh, because it doesn't as it loses momentum, it doesn't hit the ground as hard. So here's an example of this. So it would look like something. It would look something like this. Okay, here's another example of squash and stretch. This is, Minnie Mouse yanking on Mickey. Here's one of Pluto. I don't really have an example of what this would look like in motion. Here we have a character doing what the ball basically does, jumping into the shot, squashing, then stretching, and then jumping into the water. Okay. And now we have another example of squash and stretch. We have dog in normal pose and dog in stretched out pose. So, well, this is actually this is the normal pose. This is the squashed. This is the stretch. This is an example of what it would look like if you were to stretch a character that has slightly more naturalistic looking body parts. She's still very cartoony, but you can see how her face has changed a bit. I believe this is Rapunzel, a drawing of Rapunzel. All right. Now in Looney Tunes, this is what it looks like when they squash and stretch. Now you're going to notice that Wiley over here, look at his eyes, look at his eyes. Did you see how his eyes stretched across the screen for like a frame or two? Like right there. Did you see that? And then look at that. And then they did this spinning thing over here. The eyes, they did the spinning thing. So they go wank, and then they wank, and then they disappear. So there's, and then he squishes and face pops into. So this is a good example of stretch and stretch in motion, right? And now here we have Dash doing a take, and he's squashing and stretching. It's not as extreme as Wile E. Coyote, but you get to see him squash and stretch. Okay? That's what we mean by squash and stretch. It's that kind of a motion. It's an animation principle that helps give plasticity and weight to objects in motion. Okay, so the question was, how do you do this? So what we're looking for here is using it in naturalistic or cartoony animation. So in naturalistic and cartoony animation, the reality is that you use it in such a way that you actually can't see it. It's meant to be felt, not seen. So again, if we go back to the examples that we just went to, we're only seeing it because I'm pointing it out. But really, you're not really paying attention. Really, if you were just to see this on its own, you would just notice that the ball is bouncing. You wouldn't notice that anything was squashing or stretching at all. That's not the point. You would only get the sense of speed here. You don't actually see the squash or the stretch or any of this stuff. You're only seeing the speed, the reaction of the character. So in animation, it's not meant to be a pose you're supposed to freeze on. You're not supposed to actually see it. Okay. However, if you are going to do it, how do you exaggerate a naturalistic drawing? How is it that you were to do it? Here's the answer to the question. You start with a rough exaggeration pose first. Like you have to start off with the rough exaggerated pose first, not thinking about the model or if it looks like the character. Then you add the look of the structure, the look of the structure and the look of the character last. So I totally wrote this sentence completely messed up. But the point is that you don't worry about putting the character on model after you do the stretch or the squash. So, for example, I'm going to use Wonder Woman. I'm going to draw a stretched out drawing of her, giving her a surprised expression. Okay. So here's my attempt at doing this. So first of all, the very first thing I got to do, now that I have this model, I know what she's going to generally look like. So what I need to do is come up with an expression that I want. So that's what we're going to do right now. So I said surprised expression, so that's what I'm going to do. So I know that she's kind of has a elongated head. I'm going to have to make it even longer. She's got that neck. Okay. I am not going to be worried about making it look like Wonder Woman right now. What I'm looking for is the expression I want to do. So I'm just, it's almost a stick figure, almost. I am thinking about maybe the eyes get bigger, the nose gets stretched. Again, I am not thinking of the model. I'm looking at her, yes. But what I'm doing here is trying to draw the forces. and play. Okay. So this is a stretch drawing. This is where I would start. I would start with the essence of the stretch. I wouldn't necessarily start with trying to draw the character on model, making them look solid, etc. That is for the next phase, which is right now. So if you're happy with your drawing, that's when you actually start applying the model. So in this case, and this is still going to be rough, I'm going to try to make this stretched out drawing look like her. Now notice her eyes are not round. We're thinking right now she's fairly naturalistic, semi-realistic looking character. So we're making sure that we capture all the anatomy where it needs to be. Putting the eyes in eye sockets, etc. Now you're going to notice that I am not necessarily following my roughs. And also you've noticed that perhaps I've sped up the video here because it took me a while to do. And there was a whole lot of silence when I was doing it, so I'm re-recording what I said. I am not following my initial rough. That's the prerogative. That's the entire reason why it's rough. I'm making sure that I'm capturing the essence of the stretch, though. I'm pulling her further than she is, including using her hair to refine and accentuate the stretch. Now, it's not the most perfect drawing in the world. Her eyes are off, so I just made some adjustments. I didn't want her to wanted to make her looking kind of goofy. Just making adjustments. So yeah, so this is what I would do if I was going to do a stretch pose for Wonder Woman. So again, going from this to this, and then just adding the structure or the model on top of that. That's basically how it is. That's in a nutshell. Then you clean it up, etc., etc. In a nutshell, this is it. So I hope that answers your question. It works in general. It works this way for everything. Now this is actually a nice drawing, like a finished final drawing. Okay, so this is a kind of a stretched out expression. If I was doing an animated drawing of her getting into this expression, in fact, the stretch would have been much more extreme. It would probably look like this. It'd probably really stretch it out. It would probably be that squished, and her body, her facial features would probably be just as stretched out. This is about as extreme as that, so it would just go boink. It would just go into this, it would go into that. And it would only be held for about a frame, and then you wouldn't really see it. You would just have her just really quickly whoosh, quack, like that. Okay, and then would be kind of like the expression you'd see, and this is pretty pushed. It's very stretched. So that's how I'd go about doing a more naturalistic looking character, even a realistic character. I would still approach it like a really realistic looking character. I would still approach doing the rough or the stretch first, the exaggerated expression first, and then go in and apply the elements of the character on top of that. Okay? So I hope that answers your question, and thank you for watching. If you found value in this video, I'd really encourage you to return value for value by considering becoming a patron. I am on Patreon, and for $1 a month, you get to see these videos early. So all my patrons get special treatment, and they get their questions answered first before anybody else, and they get to see the videos before anybody else. Um, so if you want your answers right away, I encourage you to become a patron to get that perk. And there's other perks in higher tiers. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.